Once upon a time, in a quiet little town called Glenwood, the Thompson family moved into an old, charming house. It was a classic American home with a white picket fence and a welcoming porch, but it had a history that made it a bit mysterious. The family consisted of Emily and James, the parents, and their two daughters, Sophie and Lily. They were excited about their new home and began unpacking boxes and getting settled. Sophie, the older daughter, was a teenager who was already feeling a little unsettled by the size of the house. Lily, the younger one, was full of curiosity and eager to explore every corner of their new home. One day, Lily discovered a dusty old attic while exploring. She found a large antique mirror covered with a sheet. Curious, she pulled off the sheet and looked into the mirror, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. At least, nothing she could see. Later that night, as the family was settling down for bed, Sophie heard strange scratching noises coming from the attic. She decided to investigate. The sounds grew louder as she climbed the stairs to the attic, where she saw the mirror. The moment she touched it, the surface rippled, and a cold, unseen force grabbed her wrist. Sophie was terrified and fled back down the stairs. Her scream alerted her parents, Emily and James. They rushed out of their room and found Sophie trembling in the hallway. Worried, they all went up to the attic together. The mirror looked normal now, but as they watched, it suddenly shattered, revealing a dark, empty void behind it. From that void, a ghostly figure emerged, a shadowy presence with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. Panic set in. The family rushed to the front door, trying to escape as the apparition chased them through the house. The house seemed to twist and change, making their escape even more harrowing. They finally reached the front door, burst outside, and slammed it shut, locking the horror inside. The Thompsons stood on the porch, gasping for breath and looking back at the darkened house. The lights inside flickered eerily, and they knew they had to leave. They packed up quickly and drove away, leaving the house behind. The hollow house remained empty, waiting for the next family to move in. Its secrets and the ghostly figure still lurked within, ready to greet anyone who ventured too close. And that's the story of the Thompson family and the hollow house, a tale of mystery and terror that lingers long after the lights go out. After the Thompsons fled their home, they thought they had escaped the horror that lurked within. However, the night was far from over. As they drove away, the family's relief began to wane. Emily, trying to reassure everyone, suggested they find a hotel. The darkness outside seemed to press in on them, and the road felt endless. They were on edge, constantly glancing at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the ghostly figure from the house following them. The Thompsons finally found a roadside motel and checked in. They were exhausted and tried to get some rest, but sleep was elusive. The motel room, dimly lit and somewhat shabby, did little to calm their nerves. As they settled into their beds, the room's creaky floorboards and the distant howl of the wind made the night feel even more sinister. Sophie lay awake, her mind racing. She thought she saw shadows moving in the corners of the room, but each time she looked, nothing was there. In the middle of the night, Emily got up to use the bathroom. As she passed the mirror above the sink, she noticed something unusual in the reflection. A fleeting glimpse of the ghostly figure from the house, standing right behind her. She whirled around, but the figure was gone. Her heart raced, but she tried to dismiss it as a trick of the light. Back in the motel room, James was trying to sleep when the phone on the nightstand rang. Startled, he picked it up, but there was only static on the line. As he put the receiver down, he noticed the hotel room door was slightly ajar, even though they had locked it earlier. He went to close it, but just as he turned his back, he heard a faint whisper coming from the hallway, an eerie, ghostly voice murmuring his name. The next morning, the family tried to act normal, convincing themselves that it was just a nightmare. They had breakfast in the motel's small dining area, trying to ignore the previous night's events. However, a sense of dread still lingered. As they checked out, the motel manager mentioned that he had heard strange stories about the house the Thompsons had just left. He said that it was known for its restless spirits and that anyone who stayed there often experienced disturbing phenomena. The family exchanged worried glances, realizing they had narrowly escaped something far worse. The Thompsons decided they had to return to the house to retrieve some belongings they had left behind in their panic. As they approached the property, the sky grew dark and a storm began to brew. The wind howled through the trees, adding to the growing sense of unease. They unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house seemed eerily quiet, and the air felt heavy. As they made their way through the house, the door behind them creaked open slowly, despite having been securely shut before. The family turned, their faces pale with fear, but nothing was there. They reached the attic and hesitated at the base of the stairs. The scratching noises, now faint but unmistakable, started up again. With hearts pounding, they climbed the stairs and approached the shattered mirror. The dark void behind it seemed to pulse with a sinister energy. Suddenly, the ghostly figure reappeared, emerging from the void with an even more menacing presence. It floated towards them with an inhuman speed. The family screamed and scrambled to escape, but the house seemed to conspire against them, with doors slamming shut and the walls seeming to close in. In a desperate bid to escape, they raced through the house, the apparition hot on their heels. The house's familiar rooms now felt like a labyrinth, each turn more disorienting than the last. As they reached the front door once more, the figure lunged at them. Just as they were about to step outside, the figure's shadow reached out and grabbed at them. The family burst through the door and slammed it shut behind them, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. As they looked back through the windows, they saw the ghostly figure standing in the darkness, its hollow eyes watching them intently. The Thompsons fled the house for good, never to return. The storm raged on as they drove away, the house standing silent and foreboding in the distance. The hollow house remained, its dark secrets still hidden within, waiting for its next victims to cross its threshold. And so ends the tale of the Thompson family and their terrifying encounter with the Hollow House, a story of fear and suspense that leaves a chilling reminder of the unknown lurking in the darkness.